My name is Jess McNamara. I live here in Victoria, and my role here with you tonight is really to try to make this as easy as possible for every one of you. I'm going to be keeping very close track of time because, again, it's important that everyone who wants to speak has a chance to do so, and also just making sure that people are comfortable enough to speak from their perspective. So I'll be interjecting if needed and also helping keep us on track. We have until 11, and there's lots to be said and lots to be heard. One piece of housekeeping, Vic Derman of the council will have to leave in about an hour and 15 minutes. He has another meeting that was scheduled prior to this one, so his apologies for that. When he gets up and goes, it's not because he's upset or sick and tired of hearing from you, it's just that he has a previous engagement. So as you all are aware, the Saanich Council has been asked to check in and review on the environmental development permit area process 3 years after its implementation. So this meeting is part of that review process. And again, good to see everyone here so that you can inform that review. You've all seen on your seat an agenda that's also showing other ways that you can provide input, both written and online, so have a look at that. This isn't the only opportunity. You will also have another opportunity to give input in person when the council meets again to deliberate on this issue. That meeting has not been scheduled yet. It's to be determined. They're hoping to do it sooner rather than later, so that's the reason there hasn't been a date. They're wanting to get this important issue resolved. So all of the comments tonight, all of the written submissions, and all of the in-person submissions that were made in the November town hall meeting will all be compiled and filed and given to the council to inform their deliberations on this review. The purpose of this meeting is to hear from each and every one of you that wants to speak on your perspective on the EDPA. Okay? Excuse me, and ensure that the council has all the information they need to be able to deliberate on this. This is not a question and answer, nor is it a debate. However, it is your opportunity to have your voice heard. So I encourage you to speak. Very, again, logistical washrooms are just behind the curtain there against that wall. Quick agenda review. You have it here. We are on time, believe it or not. Hoping to begin getting input from you at about 6:10, and I'll talk to you about how we're hoping to make that run smoothly and efficiently in a minute. We'll take a break, a 15-minute break around 9 o'clock. That does have some flexibility. If people are feeling really fatigued, and I'm noticing that, then we can break a bit early, but we'll make sure everybody gets 15 minutes. And then we have until 10:45, where we'll hear from Mayor and Council if they have some comments, and then we'll wrap it up and let everyone go. If I can ask those of you who have your phones, which is probably many of us, please put them on vibrate or silent. If you need to take a call, just go ahead and step out and do that. Again, we want to ensure that everyone has equal opportunity to have their perspectives heard, and we all know how distracting it is when a phone starts ringing. Given the importance of this topic, and I know that for many, if not all of you, it is very near and dear to your hearts on a number of levels, and the fact that there are going to be different perspectives in this room, I want to ask that you afford others the courtesy of being able to speak from their perspective without feeling shut down or heckled. Okay? There's different comfort levels in this room with speaking, either to council or in public generally. And I think it's really important that everyone feels safe enough to do that. So although you may be hearing things that you agree strongly with or frankly disagree with vehemently, you may want to be clapping in support or booing or hissing in your distaste. I request that you refrain from doing that. For one, we have a very tight time frame. We need to be keeping people moving through and speaking. And if we're taking up a bunch of time with putting our personal supports or dislikes out there. It's going to take up time on the agenda. And for two, it's not helpful in this type of a setting to actually get the perspectives out and heard. So I would ask you, please refrain from clapping or booing or hissing. Okay. Also, you may want to be talking with your neighbor or your spouse or your friend or whoever's sitting next to you. If you feel the need to do that, please step out and do it. Again, this isn't meant to be overly stringent or some kind of earth-shattering type request. It's really just reminding people, please extend the courtesy to others that you would be hoping or expecting when you were up here speaking. Okay? This, again, process is for you to have your perspectives heard and on the record to council. One tip, try to remember that when you are delivering information, it is best and most easily heard by the other when it's delivered in a way that is respectful and without accusation and blame. So just keep that in mind when you're giving your perspective up here. People are going to hear it and integrate it more likely if they're able to stay and focus on you and not get wrapped up in negativity. Okay, so down to the real logistics. What we're going to do, Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to move through the speaker numbers, and what I'm going to be asking is for the first 5 to come up and take these seats, but hang on, don't anybody move, because we do have one person who has a white ticket, and that is from the last session in November, and they did not get a chance to speak because there was not enough time. So we're actually going to start with that person. I'm going to be asking that person and the first numbers 1 through 4 to come take these seats here. It's our on deck. The hope is this will really keep things flowing. We won't have to be climbing over each other in a scramble to get up here. So we'll start, we'll move through the numbers, and as we thank one speaker, I'll be inviting the next person here and reminding the next person from out there to come up and get on deck. You with me? I'm invariably going to make a mess of this, but I'm going to do my best to keep the numbers straight, okay? One thing I'll also remind you of as you come up to make your presentation is to please say your name and your address for the record. If you forget to do that, I'll remind you. Great, so if I could get the person that has the white chit right here up, please, and we can begin with you. And then numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4 on deck here, please. Come on up and have a seat. Okay, and one final piece of information. When you come up to the podium to make your presentation, the green light is going to light up for you. You will have 5 minutes. Okay? If you don't need 5 minutes, please don't take all of it, because again, we have more and more people coming. We're really hoping to ensure that everyone gets a chance to speak, and the real hope is that this venue will be an opportunity for those who haven't had a chance to be heard, or for those of you who have new information to be heard. Green light goes on. At 4 minutes, it will start flashing yellow. It will turn to yellow, giving you a heads up that you have a minute left, and then at 1 minute, it will go to red, and I'll get out the big hook and haul you off the stage. Okay? Yes, please. All right, please come on up, the person from last time.
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity. I brought my card from last time. My name is Griff Tripp. I live at 4600 Cordova Bay Road. We border on Mount Doug Park for several hundred feet. I wish to address this issue tonight from a variety of perspectives, or a variety of different hats, as it were. So, speaking as the landowner, I'd like to address you in my black hat. As an environmentalist, I'd like to talk to you from this hat. And from the science, from my engineering hat, I got a landowner and a ratepayer in there as well. Just a quick observation. If this was 1912 and we were enacting this bylaw, we would be debating the very existence of Saanich. I don't think we'd exist. That would be very sad. From a scientific point of view, to draw a line on an aerial map without inspecting is not science. It may be a very useful first step, but in and of itself, it is not science. Secondly, applying the designation of areas of highest biodiversity to lawns, gardens, farm fields, and yes, to houses seems to me scientifically to be a pure oxymoron. Environmentally, we get it. We practice organic farming on our property. That means pulling, digging, and cutting thistles and ivy and broom. Not just on our property, we need to do it in Mount Doug Park as well, because it is not being done there. No need to say thank you. I'm looking after myself by cutting it on your side of the fence too. So I am not against looking after things that are sensitive. It would be so fast, so easy, and so effective to use Roundup to solve my invasive species problems. I guess the black hat is best for the landowner. Confiscation without compensation is theft. Thieves wind up in the courts. Do they get off? We'll have to wait and see. The compensation will have to be addressed if you're going to confiscate rights. That's just unfortunate, but that's the reality, I believe. As a ratepayer, we do have, I think, some important lands out there to save and to keep and to protect. I think we need to buy them. I don't think we can buy the 2,000 pieces of property that have been identified, because as a ratepayer, I don't think I can afford that, at least not in concert with what we need to pay in the coming year for sewer and police and all those other good things. So I think we need to be a little judicious from a ratepayer's perspective on how much we can actually afford to buy and how much we can afford to look after having bought it. And finally, as a citizen of this fair municipality, I expect pleas of you as our elected councillors to reflect on what's happening here very carefully, ponder it very carefully, and ideally look at some of the solutions that have been proposed to you to solve this problem so that we don't split this wonderful community down the middle. We're all here because we like this lovely place, and we'd like to keep it that way. Thank you very much for your time and for your attention.
Can I please get number 2 up and, number 1, and also number 5 on deck, please.
Good evening. My name is Peter Howden, 3515 James Heights. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to address you on this important subject. I'm a member of Saanich Action for the Environment, which is a network of citizens with land in EDPA zones. We think there is an important long-term community interest in protecting our environment as a profoundly critical and sustaining public asset. We urge you to keep and improve the EDPA bylaw. It is important to note that our group is not motivated by self-interest, property subdivision, or profit. Our community has an enormous private and public investment in our beautiful district, with its unique blend of natural areas, rocky outcrops, and ocean shorelines. We are indeed fortunate to live here. Our environment is our most important asset, and the community has the right to protect and to restore it. I think the community agrees that our local environment is gradually deteriorating due to habitat loss, climate change, invasive species, and other threats. Over decades, Saanich has made considerable efforts to save what remains of our riparian areas, our wetlands and shorelines, Garry Oak ecosystem. Saanich has involved the public, solicited expert opinion and research through the development of the official community plan in 2008 and subsequently in the EDPA bylaw in 2012. There are two distinct categories of EDPA property: those that have subdivision potential and those without. Now, our single-family home has no subdivision potential, and we are typical of probably about 90% of the 2,200 EDPA properties that abut and encompass EDPA areas. For us and many of our neighbors, EDPA is not a problem, it is a bonus. Should we sell our home, we would promote our EDPA area for the control it provides on adjacent properties. It prevents destruction of our Garry Oak ecosystem and the character of our street. Properties on our street have seen no reduction in property assessments or in sales value as a result of EDPA. We have shared in the general increase in property values for Greater Victoria. Now, for subdivision properties, Saanich has between 50 to 100 private properties with subdivision potential, and these will have the biggest impact on what remains of the original ecosystem. EDPA provides the means to prevent unnecessary destruction of these ecosystems for construction of buildings and roads. Since the bylaw was enacted, the number of EDPA permit applications have been comparatively few. There were 8 in 2014 and 16 in 2015, so it would appear that EDPA is not a massive problem. Since 2012, a number of sensitive areas have been preserved and more will be preserved in the future. I would like to mention 2 properties on Maywood Road as an example of how EDPA can help the community and the environment. Development of 2 homes has been planned to accommodate the EDPA zone where the lots actually abut Peapot Hill Park. Neighbours have expressed their relief that these areas and the character of their street has been protected by EDPA. I have no doubt that EDPA bylaw will evolve over time, and I hope there will be more public education and community participation in caring for our environment. We encourage Council to avoid creating a precedent whereby their decisions and bylaw are challenged by special interest groups. I note that the owners of 4007 and 4011 Rainbow Street have already cited Council's decision on the Alberg property as a precedent to remove their properties from the EDPA. In closing, I respectfully ask that Council keep the EDPA bylaw to preserve our community's beautiful natural areas for future generations. Thank you. Peter Howden, 3515 James Heights.
Thank you. And we already have number 2 coming up, and can I please get number 6 and 7 on deck here? Make your way up.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Madam Facilitator, my name is Mike Romaine, 5971 Old East Road. We support the 2 EDPA designations that have been placed on our property. We see the importance of retaining whatever ecological biodiversity that remains in our region and our responsibility as stewards and citizens to retain and protect these habitats now and for future generations. In coming years, the importance of these areas will increase in significance, and they will need protection, whether on private or public lands, as much as or more so than in the agricultural land reserves for food security. However, the implementation of the EDPA has been difficult for the following reasons. One, there was very little advance awareness or information as to the purpose, intent, and timing of implementing the EDPA. There was a lack of understandable and consistent criteria for designating areas. There could have been lessons learned from the implementation of the agricultural land reserve, for example, in terms of the objectives, classification criteria, etc., to enable comparison and rating of importance of habitats. 3, there has been a lack of meaningful consultation with landowners. That's to get the buy-in. There has also been a lack, number 4, of the flexibility to make adjustments in boundaries and to work with landowners to explore ways of making future enhancements to restore some of the EDPA areas to more indigenous plant species than currently exist on some of these previously disturbed areas. And 5, there has been no recognition of each landowner's contribution to retaining the region's natural habitat. And by recognition, you can do a lot of things, even announcing the citizenship of people to do so. In brief, it is a problem with the process, I believe, that has created much of the controversy and the cloud for this very laudable goal of the EDPA. It is therefore recommended that the District of Saanich retain the EDPAs, but support this by 1, developing clear criteria to classify the types of habitat so identified along with the description of the rationale for their presentation. This could include identifying individual sites as to their importance, their scarcity, and or contribution to corridor concepts, etc. in the region. 2, consulting with landowners on understanding, care, and adjustments as necessary to the EDPAs. 3, consider tax incentives or other incentives similar to the farm tax status in return for the landowner ongoing commitment to protect their EDPA areas. And 4, ensuring that there is no double jeopardy on taxation, for example, the elimination of farm tax status on those lands that have areas in the EDPA that would exclude such areas from being part of the farm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, please, number 3, and can I have number 8 come down and get on deck, please?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. My name is Alex Wortman. I live on 2926 Phyllis Street, 10 Mile Point. Much has been said in the November meeting, and I'm sure much will be said tonight. Not all in favor, and I'm also not in favor. I do not like the heavy-handed approach that Saanich takes with property owners, dictating what they can and cannot do on their property, yet exempting Saanich property land. So we as property owners must obey to remove invasive plants, protect trees. It's all fine and good. However, as a property owner, I also should have some rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Invite number 4, please, and number 9 come down on deck, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, and our facilitator. My name is Pat Carfra. I live at 181 Goward Road, near Prospect Lake. I'm here simply to support the EDPA with the hope that the guidelines that they can be massaged, be made more flexible with time so that we can work out as an undivided community safety for our precious environment. And so I'm very happy to hear tonight some concrete suggestions, and I hope that and know that you council members will be listening carefully. Thank you. As I say, we're all on the same page in terms of loving this community in which we live.
Thank you, Pat. Invite 5 and number 10, please, down on deck.
My name is Eric Higgs. I live at 1257 Maywood Road. Mayor and Council, thank you for this opportunity. The municipality of Saanich has an enviable record of environmental stewardship, with significant network of protected areas, progressive policy on invasive species, environmental stewardship plans, the Saanich Pulling Together volunteer program, and a commitment to climate action. At the same time, Saanich is creating greater density in its urbanized area, prioritizing biking lanes and transforming a suburban community into a compact, complete neighborhood, or complete neighborhoods, bordered by city, ocean, and agricultural land and connected natural areas. Saanich is a spectacular example of a municipality in transition towards sustainability. Historically, Saanich held the largest portion of southeastern Vancouver Island's unique Garry Oak ecosystems. Roughly 5% of those are left now. Urban development and agricultural and industrial encroachment have been joined more recently by climate change and invasive species impacts as major drivers of the degradation of Garry Oak ecosystems, which are amongst the most endangered in all of Canada and were carefully managed historically by Strait Salish Indigenous peoples. It is challenging to know how best to preserve what's left. But as noted conservationist Aldo Leopold wrote in the late 1930s, to keep every cog and wheel is the first precaution of intelligent tinkering. Saanich's environmental development permit area regulations are a way of saving every cog and wheel. Relying solely on public land protection in the form of parks and reserves in an urban and urbanizing region will simply not work. The pieces are just too scattered. There are many vestiges of the original Garry Oak habitats located on private lands, and many of those adjoin larger public reserves. Much can be done to minimize impacts to these fragments, foster connectivity between the natural spaces, and encourage sensible private stewardship. Take, for example, the small remaining hilltop islands of diversity in South Saanich, where I live. Peacock Hill, Camrose, and Playfair public parks are surrounded by private homes. Many backyards contain remnant populations, Garry Oaks, camas, and associated flora and fauna, and habitat that expands the effective size of those parks. By limiting future hardscape developments in these areas and encouraging restoration through invasive species removal, we can arrest or at least slow down degradation. At the heart of the recent debate over the EDPA are shifting perceptions of nature in an urbanizing region. To some, nature is anchored in the ideal of wilderness, lands and waters untouched by degrading human activities. Viewed this way, only the largest protected areas in Saanich, Peakholes or Mount Douglas, Mount Work, and Francis King parks come even close. I believe a different view is needed to realize the bold environmental vision that Saanich embraces. Nature is found in so many places, sometimes fragmented. It's often degraded by heavy use and invasive species, but when the elements of nature, of native biodiversity are there, nature can be restored. Protecting and connecting these fragments of nature, which is what the EDPA encourages, will result in greater adaptive capacity for the ecosystems of Saanich to cope with the uncertainties that climate change and continuing development holds. Blending strong protection with robust stewardship opens the possibility that a future Saanich will be more ecologically diverse than it is now for our children and for the future of the region. And that's a vision worth working for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Number 6, please, and if number 11 could come down on deck, please.